Mom, is that this month's check?
It's smaller. I didn't change anything.
If you're still working while you collect Social Security, if you ever co-signed or took out a federal student loan, or if you remarried after losing a spouse, this next part is about you. Specifically, Anna was 63, living outside Columbus, Ohio. She'd started her Social Security a year early, at 62, and figured that was that. The check came the same amount every month, and she'd earned it. Decades of payroll taxes, no gaps. So when a former colleague offered her part-time consulting work, 3 days a week, good money, she took it. Why wouldn't she? The Social Security was already hers. Then the following spring, her check came smaller. Not late, not missing. Smaller. And there was no letter she could find that explained it in plain English, no phone number that gave her a straight answer the first time she called. Anna hadn't done anything wrong. She'd broken no rule, filed nothing false. She'd simply run into one of 5 completely legal reasons the Social Security Administration can reduce a check you already earned, and hers was the mildest one on the list. That's the part most people never hear until it happens to them. There are 5 separate mechanisms, all of them lawful, all of them automatic, and most retirees only find out about one of them the hard way. Some are temporary, and you get the money back. One of them is permanent. No letter, no warning, no undo. Before we go any further, one honest note. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, and this isn't personal financial advice. It's the briefing that lets you walk into that Social Security office already knowing which questions to ask. And if it's useful, a quick like helps the channel reach more people who need it. So let's walk all 5. And as we go, I want you to keep a private tally of how many apply to you, because by the end, that number is the whole point. Let's start with Anna, because her reason is the one most people brush up against, and the one that scares them the most for no good reason. It's called the earnings test, and the moment you understand how it actually works, it stops being frightening. Here's the setup. If you claim Social Security before your full retirement age, for most people watching, that's 66 and some months, or 67. The government puts a ceiling on how much you can earn from a job while you collect. Go over that ceiling and they hold back part of your check. In 2026, if you're under full retirement age for the whole year, that ceiling is $24,480. Earn above it, and Social Security withholds $1 for every $2 you go over. Walk that out with Anna. Her consulting work paid her about $34,000 for the year. That's roughly $10,000 over the limit. $1 withheld for every $2 over. So about $5,000 held back out of her checks across the year. That's why the money got smaller in the spring. Nothing was wrong. The rule simply switched on the moment her earnings crossed the line. Now, there's a special, more forgiving version in the 1 year you actually reach full retirement age. In that year, the ceiling jumps way up, $65,160 in 2026, and they only withhold $1 for every 3 you go over and only for the months before your birthday month. Then, the day you hit full retirement age, the earnings test disappears completely. No limit. Earn $1 million a year if you can. They don't touch your check, so if you're still working in your early 60s and collecting, comment your age below. Because whether you're 2 years from full retirement age or 6 changes this math completely, and it's worth knowing exactly where you stand. But here's what almost everybody gets backwards about the earnings test, and it's the reason I told you not to be scared of it. Most people think that withheld money is gone, taken, lost the way a tax is lost. It isn't. When you finally reach full retirement age, Social Security recalculates your benefit and gives it back to you, spread out as a permanently higher monthly check for the rest of your life. The earnings test doesn't shrink what you collect over a lifetime. It delays it. Anna's $5,000 wasn't a penalty. It was a deferral, and she'll see it again. That's why this one sits at the bottom of the list. It stings in the moment. The check really does get smaller, and if you're living close to the bone, that timing matters. But it's temporary, and it's recoverable. The next 4 are not all so gentle, and the second one reaches your check through a door most retirees don't even know is unlocked. federal debt. Most people believe Social Security is untouchable, that once it's yours, no creditor on earth can reach into it. And for private debt, a credit card, a medical bill, a car loan, that's very nearly true. They can't touch it. But there's one creditor that can, the federal government itself. It works through something called the Treasury Offset Program. If you owe a delinquent debt to a federal agency, and this is the part that catches people, that includes a defaulted federal student loan, not just yours. One you co-signed for a child or a grandchild, and they stopped paying. If that debt goes far enough into default, the Treasury can intercept part of your Social Security check to collect on it, right at the source, before the money ever reaches your bank. There are guardrails, and they matter. The debt has to be seriously delinquent, generally at least 120 days past due. The agency has to send you a written warning at least 60 days before they refer your debt for offset. So, this is never supposed to arrive as a total surprise. There's a letter. The trouble is, how many people see that letter, don't understand what it's threatening, and set it aside? Now, an important, honest caveat. And this is why you check the date on any video like this. As of early 2026, the Department of Education had paused collections on defaulted federal student loans, which includes these Treasury offsets. So, at the moment I'm recording this, that specific trigger may not be actively firing. But a pause is not a repeal. The legal machinery is still fully in place. This is exactly how it works the day it's switched back on. And pauses in this arena have a long history of ending with little fanfare. So if you're carrying a defaulted federal loan or you co-signed one, treat this as live and get ahead of it. And that's the real point of this one. The offset itself is almost never the first thing that happens. It's the last thing, the end of a chain of notices that were mailed and missed. If a federal student loan sits in your family, comment the word co-signed below if you didn't realize your own Social Security could be exposed to it, because I promise you're not the only one, and this is precisely the kind of thing that goes unspoken until the check comes up short. So the first reason was temporary. This second one has a warning built in if you catch the letter. The third reason has neither. No refund, no notice you can act on after the fact, and it turns entirely on a single birthday. If you lost a spouse, you may be entitled to a survivor benefit, the right to collect based on your late husband's or wife's Social Security record, often a good deal larger than your own. For a lot of widows and widowers, it's the single biggest piece of their retirement income. It's money built on a lifetime shared with someone who's gone. And there's one decision that can erase it, permanently. In a way most people never see coming, because nobody sits them down and explains it at the time. Here it is plainly. If you remarry before you turn 60, you lose your eligibility for that survivor benefit, not paused, not reduced, gone. You can no longer collect on your late spouse's record, but if you wait, if you remarry at 60 or later, you keep it. You can walk down the aisle again and still collect the survivor benefit from your first marriage. Nothing changes. The entire outcome hinges on one birthday. Marry at 59 and 11 months, you forfeit it. Marry 1 month later, at 60, you keep it for life. Same love, same person, same wedding, a 30-day difference in timing, and one version quietly costs you a benefit you might have collected for 20 or 30 years. Think about who this actually happens to. A woman loses her husband in her mid-50s. A few hard years later, she meets someone. They fall in love, they marry at 57, 58, because when you've already lost one person, you don't see a reason to wait. No one at the wedding is thinking about Social Security survivor rules. Why would they be? And years later, when she goes to claim, she's told the benefit tied to her first husband is no longer available to her because of the date on a marriage certificate she signed in good faith, knowing none of this. That's what makes this one the hardest on the list. The earnings test gives your money back. The offset sends a letter first. This one does neither. There's no warning built into the moment, and once it's done, there's no undo, unless that later marriage itself ends, by death or divorce or annulment, which can reopen the door. But you cannot plan your life around that. There is one mercy in the rules worth knowing. If you're disabled, remarriage after age 50, not 60, 50, does not cost you the survivor benefit. It's a narrower door, but for those it applies to, it's a real one. So, if you're widowed and thinking about remarrying, or you know someone who is, this is the number that matters more than almost anything else on this channel. 60. Share this video with them before the wedding, not after. That single piece of timing has quietly cost people tens of thousands of dollars, and the fix is free. You just have to know it exists before you set a date. And now here's where it gets genuinely confusing. Because there's a second kind of ex-spouse benefit, it also involves remarriage, and its rule is the exact opposite of the one I just gave you. Get these two mixed up, and you'll plan around the wrong number entirely. The rule you just learned was about a survivor benefit, collecting on a spouse who has died. But there's a different benefit for a different situation. Your ex is still alive. If you were married at least 10 years and then divorced, you can, under the right conditions, collect on your living ex-spouse's Social Security record. It doesn't cost them a cent, it doesn't affect their check, and in many cases, they never even know. This is the divorced spouse benefit, and for someone whose own work record is thin, it can be a lifeline. Now watch what happens when you remarry, and watch how it flips. With the survivor benefit, the magic number was 60. Remarry before it, you lose the benefit. Wait until 60, and you keep it. There's an age that protects you. With this one, the living ex-divorced spouse benefit, there is no protective age. None. If you remarry, at any age, you lose it. 60 doesn't save you. 70 doesn't save you. The moment you remarry, that benefit on your living ex-spouse's record ends. Full stop. So these two rules sound almost identical when you say them out loud. Both involve an ex. Both involve remarriage, and they run in opposite directions. One has an age that rescues you. The other has no rescue at all. This is exactly the kind of thing people get backwards. They hear, wait until 60 for one and assume it applies to both. Remarry thinking they're safe, and only later find out they were protecting a benefit the 60 rule never covered. If your ex-spouse is still living, and you've been counting on collecting from their record, this is the one to get straight before you do anything. Comment living ex below if this distinction is new to you. Because I'd bet good money most people watching just realized they had these two filed under the same rule. 4 reasons down. The 5th one is different from all of them. It's not really a rule of its own. It's the quiet crack that lets the other 4 do their damage before you ever see it coming. Here's what ties the first 4 together. The thing almost nobody thinks of as a reason at all. Every one of those mechanisms depends on the Social Security Administration knowing something about your life has changed. You went back to work. You remarried. Your ex-spouse situation shifted. And here's the uncomfortable truth. It is not their job to find out. It's yours to tell them. The burden of reporting sits on you. When a change happens that affects your benefit, your income, your marital status, you're required to report it to Social Security and to do it promptly within a short window after it happens. Not eventually. Not when you get around to it. Promptly. Miss that window, and the machine doesn't stop. It keeps paying you as if nothing changed, which sounds harmless, free money even, until you understand what's actually happening. Every one of those checks that should have been smaller is now an overpayment, and Social Security will come back for that money. They'll send a letter, sometimes years later, telling you that you owe thousands of dollars back, money you already spent, because you had no idea it wasn't rightfully yours. That's the crack. Not one of these 5 reasons announces itself in real time. The earnings test, the offset, the remarriage rules, they all work quietly in the background, and the reporting window is the moment where you could have caught it and didn't because no one told you the clock was running. So the single most protective habit you can build is almost boring. When anything changes, you take a job, you remarry, your income jumps. Tell Social Security in writing right away and keep a copy. It's the cheapest insurance in this entire video. And if you want to see exactly how these overpayment letters land and what your options actually are, When one shows up demanding money back, I made a full video walking through that trap. I'll point you to it at the end, because it's the natural other half of this one. One honest note on the timing. The exact number of days you're given to report can depend on your specific benefit, so don't take a hard figure from me. Confirm the current window for your situation directly on ssa.gov or with the agency. The principle holds no matter the number. Report early, report in writing. So, 5 reasons. Let's put them back together, because the number that matters now is the one you've been keeping in your head this whole time. So let's put the 5 back together, the way I asked you to keep count at the start. 1. The earnings test. If you're collecting before full retirement age and still working, your check shrinks when you cross the limit, $24,480 in 2026, but it comes back to you later. Temporary. 2. The Treasury offset. A defaulted federal debt, including a student loan you took out or co-signed, can reach your check at the source. There's a warning letter first if you catch it. 3. Remarriage before 60, which permanently ends a survivor benefit built on a spouse you lost, the one with no undo. 4. Its mirror image, the divorced spouse benefit on a living ex, which any remarriage ends at any age, with no protective number at all. And 5. The reporting window, the quiet crack underneath the other 4, where a change you didn't report becomes an overpayment you'll be asked to give back. Now, the number you've been holding. How many of the 5 apply to you? If it's 0, good, you can watch someone else worry. But if it's 1 or 2 or 3, that's not a reason to panic. It's the opposite. Because every one of these is only dangerous when it's invisible. The earnings test recovers itself once you know it's coming. The offset can be handled before it fires. The remarriage rules cost you nothing at all if you simply know the number before you set a date. And the reporting window protects you completely the moment you make a habit of telling Social Security the truth, in writing, right away. None of this is the system trying to rob you. It's a set of automatic rules that run whether you're watching or not. And the only real disadvantage is not knowing they exist. Now you do. That's the entire edge. So tell me in the comments, which of the 5 did you not know about before today? I read them, and the answer is almost never 0. If this cleared something up, the kindest thing you can do is send it to one person in your life who's near retirement, or widowed, or thinking about remarrying. Because this is exactly the knowledge that never gets passed along until it's too late to use it. And one last honest word, the same one I started with. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, and none of this is personal advice for your specific situation. Your record, your marriage history, your debts, those details change the answer, and they deserve a real professional or a call to Social Security directly. What this video gives you is the map. Walk into that office already knowing the terrain, and you'll never be the person whose check quietly got smaller and never found out why.